सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
In the middle of all the grim and depressing and terrible news coming out of the Middle East, the deaths, the bombings, the hostages, I found myself thinking of Mahatma Gandhi. It's a strange thing, but I thought of it because it's not particularly fashionable these days to like Mahatma Gandhi or to remember the lessons he taught us. In fact, there is a view among many people on the Indian right wing that Gandhiji set us on the wrong path. And I'm not just talking about the guys who admire Nathuram Godse. Oddly enough, there are many more of them than you would imagine. But even normal right-wingers think that Gandhiji, Pandit Nehru, Sardar Patel, all of them set India on the wrong path. I'll tell you why that's so, and I'll tell you why it links up with Israel. Well, the theory is as follows, that under Nehru, under Gandhi, under Sardar Patel, we became a soft state, sort of namby-pamby, wanting to be friends with people. We should have been, like Israel, a state that was aggressive, militaristic, didn't care what people said. We should have had a great secret service like Mossad. We should have been vengeful. We should have hunted people down. We should have been so well informed. Mossad is so well informed that even if a mouse squeaks in the West Bank, Mossad knows about it. That's the theory. The theory is that we should have been like that, but we were not. Why weren't we? Well, because Gandhiji had all this ahimsa, non-violent stuff, and Pandit Nehru believed in all this non-alignment nonsense. That's the theory. Now, why, you would ask, would anybody think this? After all, Gandhiji won us our independence, didn't he? Well, no. According to this WhatsApp rewriting of history, we won our independence because the British were scared away by a naval mutiny. Get that? Not scared away by the 1857 revolt, not scared away by anything, but by a naval mutiny, right? If that doesn't convince you, then here's the other theory. The other theory is they left because of Netaji. Well, they left in 1947. By then, the Second World War was over. The INA had been disbanded. Netaji had passed away. Why should that have made a difference? Don't argue. These are WhatsApp forwards. Logic doesn't make a difference. You can't even point out to them that whatever you may say about Netaji and his disagreements with Nehru and Gandhi, there was never any doubt which side he was on. There were regiments named after Jawaharlal Nehru in the INA. There was no regiment named after Savarkar. Whatever else he wasn't a Hindu fundamentalist. These arguments don't make any sense. No, they say, we became a soft state and we lost out. Why do they say this? Well, there's two reasons. One of them is, I think, to answer the Congress taunt that the Hindu right, that the Hindu fundamentalists had no role to play in the freedom struggle. Well, they say, neither did the Congress. It did nothing. We got freedom because of a naval mutiny, because of the Indian National Army. Gandhiji had zero role. I think that's one reason this hard state, soft state nonsense is used. The other argument is that I think the notion India is strong, that it has a strong army that can push people around, it's no longer going to take any nonsense from anyone, appeals to people with a basic insecurity and a lack of understanding about how the world functions. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel strong. In fact, this whole stuff about soft state and hard state is nonsense. India has never been a soft state in the sense that people would like us to think. We've always been the kind of state that wants to have good relations with everyone, that wants to have dialogue. But when dialogue fails, I don't think we've hesitated. In 1971, when there was a freedom movement in East Pakistan and refugees came flooding into India, Mrs. Gandhi tried diplomacy. She spoke to many countries all over the world. But when no one would intervene, when Pakistan went on doing what it was doing, we invaded. We broke up Pakistan and we liberated the nation of Bangladesh. That's been our attitude ever since then. We may talk, but we are never in any doubt about when to retaliate. And what? The last 3 or 4 prime ministers, we've done surgical strikes. We've crossed the border into Pakistan, regardless of what anyone might say. Under Atal Bihari Vajpayee, we did a nuclear test, even though we knew that the world would not be happy. It's always been our way, but we've always believed in proportional retaliation, in keeping a sense of what is right and what is wrong, what is in India's interest or what is not. Let's take the current government, always held up as an example of a hard state. Despite the sort of nonsense that is fed to the uneducated on social media and the rah-rah Bollywood movies, the truth is that this government has followed a very careful and cautious foreign policy. We may say whatever we like about Muslims in India, but they've been very, very careful not to offend any Arab countries. If a BJP spokesperson says anything that's out of line, they disown that spokesperson. Even when it comes to Pakistan, don't forget, Mr. Modi went to Nawaz Sharif's birthday party. He made every attempt to try and be friends. Let's not forget that even after the Pulwama massacre, our response was proportionate. We had Balakot. We did not go further. It was the same with Vajpayee. After the parliament attack, when people wanted an attack on Pakistan, we launched Operation Parakram. We massed our army on the border, but we did not invade. Nor did we invade after the Bombay attacks. We knew what was right. We knew what was wrong. It's not a soft state. It's a state that's sensible. It's a state that makes sure that Indians suffer as little as possible, that we spend no money on needless wars if we can help it. And yet, we don't let anybody push us around. As a consequence, you and I will sleep soundly tonight. We will feel that we are okay, that there is no real danger to us. Ask yourself this. Will any Israeli sleep soundly tonight? I question this whole assumption, first of all, that Israel is a hard state that uses only military might. It's not. It's a state that's understood, as all modern states do, that there are times when you must negotiate. If it had not been so, then Israel would never, in the 1970s, the late 1970s, enter into a dialogue with Egypt when Anwar Sadat came to Jerusalem. The leader of Israel then, Menachem Begin, was the most hardline leader that had till that point. Even he saw the reason that people always believe in dialogue. And as a consequence, he was able to diffuse the border dispute with Egypt. As a consequence, Israelis lived in much more peace, and their enemies, the Palestinians, the Israelis' enemies, were more isolated. That's been true even of Netanyahu, the current leader, who's much more hardline than anybody who's gone before, who's done things, I believe, no sensible person can defend. But even he's been talking to Saudi Arabia. He's been trying to create some kind of dialogue so that there is some measure of peace. And for people who talk about how hard states are happy, just look at Israel, look at this so-called hard state. Look at Mossad. Look at the record of Mossad, because Indians worship Mossad. We idolize Mossad. It actually didn't predict the 1973 war. It's been caught completely on the wrong foot this time with the Hamas attack. It had no idea what was going to happen. Yes, there's been revenge attacks. There's been stuff like the Munich attacks and their revenge for it. But that doesn't actually make Israelis feel much safer. Ultimately, the idea that any kind of hard state, which will make its neighbors fear it, which will pick on, say, the Palestinians in the case of Israel, is going to guarantee the safety and security of its people, is flawed. Yes, nations need military strength. Yes, nations must not take nonsense from anybody. And you could argue that contrary to being a hard state, we're actually being too soft at the moment with China. But I'm sure it's a decision the government has thought through. All nations ultimately must use a mixture of dialogue, ingenuity, and military strength to ensure that their people are kept safe. All this nonsense about hard state, soft state, the Congress created a soft state, we are now a hard state. It's actually nonsense. It's stuff fed to people on WhatsApp and social media, and people who have no knowledge of geopolitics swallow it. The truth is that just being a hard state, that having a great secret service does not guarantee your security, does not guarantee your safety. The answer is that all countries, just as India has been, must use everything, must look ultimately to guarantee the security of their people. And as much as I feel bad for what's happening in the Middle East, I have to say a succession of Indian governments have kept us largely safe and secure. And that's something to be grateful for.